Sometimes the most dangerous form of control is the one that never looks like control at all. Welcome to emotional shadow. It doesn't shout, doesn't threaten, and doesn't appear with obvious red flags. Instead, it arrives disguised as love, wrapped in concern, and delivered in a tone so gentle that you feel guilty for questioning it. We grow up believing that real care is obvious, that love is easy to recognize, and that unhealthy behavior always reveals itself quickly. But what if one of the biggest hidden truths about modern relationships is that the most damaging control is the kind that pretends to protect you? What if the very behaviors that feel thoughtful on the surface slowly reshape your identity, your choices, and your emotional freedom without you ever noticing it happen? To understand how control becomes camouflaged as care, we need to look deeper into the psychological roots of protective behavior, attachment dynamics, and the subtle ways human connection triggers our deepest fears. Historically, relationship researchers like John Bowlby, Mary Ainsworth, and later theorists on codependency explored how people bond based on early emotional experiences. Their discoveries revealed something uncomfortable. People with insecure or anxious attachment patterns often confuse closeness with possession and protection with surveillance. Yet this pattern rarely starts with malice. In fact, the twist lies in how many controlling behaviors genuinely begin with good intentions. A partner says they worry about you. They want you safe. They want you to avoid mistakes, or they want to help you because they believe they know what's best. The line between support and control becomes blurred, and over time the person on the receiving end struggles to tell the difference. The origins of this issue often come from childhood environments where love was conditional, where a parent's care came with strings attached, or where affection was linked to obedience. Individuals raised this way often enter relationships with a subconscious belief that love must involve managing the other person as choices. The rise of control disguised as care usually begins subtly. A partner may start by asking harmless-sounding questions. Where are you going? Who will be there? Did you eat? These questions don't raise suspicion because they're normal, until they become frequent, insistent, and emotionally loaded. What starts as concern shifts into monitoring, and what starts as guidance shifts into decision-making on your behalf. Over time, the pattern evolves. Your partner chooses what you should wear because they want you to look your best. They advise you against certain friends because they are a bad influence, or they encourage you to stay home more often because they miss you and want more time together. Each act seems caring, until you realize you're slowly giving up your social circle, your independence, and your autonomy. As this pattern grows, the impact begins to reshape the entire relationship dynamic. The partner who controls begins to feel more secure because they believe they are protecting the relationship. Meanwhile, the partner being controlled gradually loses confidence, second-guesses their own decisions, and begins to feel responsible for their partner's emotional stability. The real breaking point usually comes when the controlling partner's anxiety is triggered by something unexpected: disagreement, a delayed reply, a change in routine, or a moment when the other person asserts independence. Suddenly the mask slips, and the care becomes criticism. The concern becomes accusation. The "I just worry about you" becomes "you don't care about me." These breaking points reveal how deeply emotional dependence has woven itself into the relationship, creating conflicts that escalate quickly and painfully. The fallout from these breaking points can be devastating for emotional intimacy. The person on the receiving end often feels guilty for wanting space, ashamed for having boundaries, and confused about why they feel suffocated when their partner insists they're simply loving them. Because the control was disguised as care, the emotional consequences become even more difficult to identify. Instead of realizing they're being controlled, many people blame themselves. They assume they're too sensitive, too defensive, or too independent. Meanwhile, attempts to address the problem often fail because the controlling partner doesn't see themselves as controlling. They believe they're being thoughtful, loving, and protective. Conversations turn into loops. One partner expresses discomfort, the other feels unfairly accused, and nothing changes. When we connect these hidden dynamics to modern relationship challenges, the patterns become even clearer. Studies on communication breakdown show that partners often misinterpret each other's intentions, especially when emotional insecurity is involved. Social media has intensified this issue by creating constant opportunities for jealousy, comparison, and hype. Many couples now experience a new form of control, disguised as digital care, checking each other's online activity, asking why someone liked to post, or insisting on shared passwords for transparency. What looks like openness is often surveillance. What looks like closeness can actually be fear. Manipulation becomes unintentional, and communication erodes as both partners begin responding from a place of anxiety rather than connection. This repeating cycle shows up across countless relationships. One partner becomes protective, the other feels restricted. Boundaries blur, and emotional dependence grows until both people feel trapped. The controlling partner fears losing the relationship, while the controlled partner fears losing themselves. This tension creates two parallel emotional realities, and the longer it continues, the harder it becomes to repair. Ironically, the very behavior meant to preserve the relationship slowly suffocates it. The more someone tries to manage their partner in the name of love, the more love and trust begin to crumble. 3 powerful takeaways emerge from understanding how control masquerades as care. First, real care never restricts your growth, your friendships, or your independence. It supports without suffocating. Second, control often begins with insecurity, not intention, which means healing requires self-awareness, not blame. Third, communication mastery in relationships depends on distinguishing between concern rooted in love and concern rooted in fear. If a partner's care limits your choices, isolates you, or makes you feel watched, the issue is not love, it's control. And if a partner genuinely wants to change, the transformation begins with acknowledging the emotional fear behind their behavior. But even with these insights, we must remember that trust and love are always fragile. The line between supporting someone and managing them is thinner than most people realize. It takes intention, honesty, and emotional maturity to stay on the right side of that line. If anything, this truth should make us more careful, more aware, and more committed to protecting each other's emotional freedom. Because once control enters a relationship dressed as care, it becomes incredibly difficult to recognize and even harder to undo. If you found this exploration eye-opening and want to go deeper into the hidden psychological forces that shape love, connection, and communication, make sure you follow the channel and continue exploring these insights. There is so much more beneath the surface of every relationship, and together, we can uncover it.